The half-life of an element is the amount of time required for exactly half of a quantity of that element to decay. The age of a sample can be determined based on the ratio of parent to daughter isotopes within the sample. This technology may be used to accurately measure the age of a sample of rocks.
Sounds like he's been thoroughly brainwashed to believe what they told him. Carbon dating. I like this cartoon somebody did. The diamond is carbon and the coal is carbon. Fossils are really dated by the position in the geologic column, which was invented in 1830. The geologic column does not exist anywhere in the world, except in the textbook and the imagination. They tell the kids the top layer is younger. I say, really? Where did it come from? Outer space? The layers did not form vertically. They formed horizontally with the flood, the tidal pumping of the tide going up and down. That's another story. But what they've done, carbon dating was invented in 1950s by Willard Libby at University of Chicago and others. It wasn't even invented until 60 years ago. Way before that, they were using this stupid geologic column to date the age of rocks and fossils. So if you're going to date it with carbon dating or potassium argon or rubidium strontium or lead-208 or lead-206 or carbon-13 or carbon-14, it has to match the geologic column or it's rejected. They may date a sample 5 or 6 times until they get the number they want. Well, how do you know the one you're looking for? By the geologic column. The top layer, if it's really younger, where did it come from? Outer space? Here's something David needs to consider about carbon dating. If you walked into a room and you found a candle burning on a table, you walk in, here's the candle, it's burning. And I ask you the very simple question, when was it lit? You say, I don't know. Well, let's do some science on it. Empirical science, things we can test, study, demonstrate. Let's measure how tall it is. So we measure the candle and we find out it is precisely 7 inches tall. Can you tell me when it was lit? Well, no. Okay, let's measure how fast it's burning. Suppose it's burning 1 inch per hour. Now, can you tell me, when was it lit? No, unless you make some assumptions. Number one, how tall was it when it started? We have no way of knowing that. Number two, has it always burned at the same rate? We don't know that. You don't know that carbon dating or any radiometric dating has always been the same rate of burn, and you don't know the initial content. They have now discovered recently, I'll show you articles in a minute if we get that far, about magma down in the ground. As a volcano gets ready to erupt, the magma comes up near the surface. The carbon levels or the radioactive levels in different parts of the same magma pile are different because of the heat and pressure. So radiometric dating would not have been feasible if the geologic column had not been erected first. They've known this for 50 years. Okay? Ever since William Smith at the beginning of the 19th century, fossils have been, and still are, the best and most accurate method of dating and correlating the rocks in which they occur. The whole thing is based on the assumption that evolution happened and you go from clams at the bottom to birds at the top. Well, the reason clams are found at the bottom is because clams are already at the bottom. They live there. That's when the flood comes, they're the first ones buried. Petrified clams like this one in the closed position indicate rapid burial and burial while they're alive. These are found by the billions all over the world. We got a bunch in our museum here. They find petrified clams on top of Mount Everest, tallest mountain in the world. So really the problem, before you get into carbon dating, you better dismantle this stupid geologic column. It does not exist anywhere. Made up in 1830, and say the layers are different ages. They simply are not. This guy said, apart from very modern examples, which really are archaeology, I can think of no cases of radioactive decay being used to date fossils. They're going to date the fossil by where you found it. Take a fossil to any university and say, how old is this? First question they ask, where did you find it? What difference does that make? Can't they carbon date it? Potassium, argon, rubidium, strontium, lead-208, lead-206? No, they're going to ask where you found it, because they're going to give it a date based upon the geologic column. More bad news for radiometric dating. Get this article on cs.unc.edu about how carbon dating, they're finding that the volcano, lava, magma in the volcano neck has different ages in the same magma pile. There's a great article in Answers in Genesis, radiometric dating, problems with the assumptions. You have to assume that you know the initial content. You cannot know that. You have to assume the decay rate's always been the same. You can't know that. Article on, let's see, Carlton Students may also be aware that bad assumptions in contamination can result in inaccurate radiometric dates. Well, if you start with the wrong assumption, and you can get inaccurate dates if it's been contaminated. How do you know it hasn't been contaminated for all these billions of years? You cannot possibly know that, okay? David was right that certain elements decay, and we know today their half-life. We don't know that it's always been that, but we can say they decay to a more stable daughter element. But you're guessing at what it started with, and you can't know that. And you're guessing that the decay rate's always been the same, and you're guessing that there's been no contamination. ScienceDaily.com has an article from Cornell University. Radiocarbon dating is a key tool for archaeologists to determine the age of plants and objects made with organic material. It only works on things that are organic. But new research shows that commonly accepted radiocarbon date standards can miss the mark, calling into question historical timelines.